All right, let's take a look at this week's internet weather. So the top 10 most probed ports. Top of the list is 23 TCP, that's telnet. Not a whole bunch of change there. 445 TCP is SMB, and those two usually sort of switch around a bit. 22 TCP is SSH, that's up 2. It's kind of interesting, but it's one of those ports we've seen a lot of scanning on for a very long time. Yeah. 81 TCP is an alternate web port we've seen related to different IoT vulnerabilities. 80 ICMP is ping, that's up 2 spots. 3389 is remote desktop protocol. 8080 is another one of those IoT web ports. 80 TCP is up 4 slots. That's just plain old web traffic. 3306 I think is MySQL server. 443 is SSL, and that's down 2 spots. The most sources probing, again, that is the number of individual endpoints probing and not the volume of the traffic they're sending. 445 TCP, we talked about 23, 8080, 80. 5431 is actually a Broadcom UPNP vulnerability. You know how we were talking about UPNP scanning before? Yeah. This is an example of that kind of traffic. Yeah. 5555 is Android debug bridge, remote debug bridge in particular. 53 UDP is up 11 spots, so someone is looking for DNS servers. Usually that's somebody who's looking for DNS servers for a reflective amplification attack, because you can get a lot of data back from a DNS server, and it's UDP, which means you can spoof your source. 80 ICMP is ping, 1900 UDP is SSDP, Simple Service Discovery Protocol, and 81 TCP is, again, another one of those web ports. So taking a look at 445, it actually looks like it's trending downwards slightly, which I think sort of jives with what we saw before, where it had switched top spots with port 23. But you know, it's not a significant decrease. 5431 is that Broadcom UPNP bug, and over the last month or so, we've seen significant concentrated scanning. You could see before it was mostly, you know, blips every week or so. Someone was very, very interested in it for a brief amount of time and then fell off. Now it seems like there's possibly a different botnet doing consistent scanning across multiple days, somewhere around the 5,000 to 10,000 source range.
Yeah. We see a lot of UPnP scanning for obvious reasons. It does present security vulnerabilities for IoT, but it ties back to a story that we had just done with some vulnerabilities in an open source library for mini UPnP.
1433 MSSQL is, I was on the show last time, we had a huge drop off on this. I just want to check back and see where things have gone. It seems like the floor is somewhere around 500 different sources per hour with a couple of spikes every day or so, but it's nowhere near the way that it was before. So this seems to have been abandoned in favor of other ports, or perhaps there was a botnet that's decided to not scan quite as aggressively. It's not really easy to say. Port 23, actually, you can see at the end over there, there's a slight uptick in the number of scan sources. We broke the 50,000 scan sources per hour count. And this probably is part of why we're seeing those two ports switch spaces. I can't say that those are actually the same botnets, you know, switching spaces, but it certainly is an interesting trend. We'll see how long it tracks. This one did not show up in the top 10, but it hit a volumetric alarm of ours, so I decided to take a closer look at it. And it's port 9527 TCP, and it seems to be specific to IoT devices using a HiSilicon chip, and it's a debug port, which you can do certain things over, but it also appears to be sort of an indicator that this device is a certain type of device. So what you might see is that someone will scan for port 1 to say, hey, is this the device I think it is? And once they've confirmed it, they go to the port that's actually vulnerable. We've seen this before with other devices that are IoT, where they've got some sort of indicator on a higher port, and then once you've figured out what it is, you go to that lower port and you know what that password is because you fingerprinted the device. Yep. So in this case, it seems to be there's a couple people who have actually figured out how to do this for their own IP cameras. They know this is the port, and they know that there's a default password. So with a 1-2 combination, you can get right into the device. So it seems to be one more bug that's being added to the list that people are scanning for in order to build out their botnets. 53413 UDP is its Netis backdoor. It's another one I figured I would check in on as well. We did have some spikes in the middle of February, but it's
quite down.
It's quite down from there. But yeah, still another one of those interesting ones. This was a backdoor that you could use a single UDP packet for command injection. So that one's pretty interesting to track always. And that's it for the internet weather.